This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Opinions expressed. Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Join Terry with Tracer Rounds every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central to hear interviews with veteran artists, veteran business owners, and businesses that support veterans. Tune in to see if you're on target. Catch us on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and MB Radio, giving veterans a voice.
Welcome back to Tracer Rounds. I'm your host, Terry, and I have a special guest in the studio with me tonight, and he just happens to be my brother-in-law, and his name is Bud White, and he is an Army veteran, and I have him on my show tonight to tell his story. So, Bud, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. I'm so excited for you to be here. Bud and I actually just met again. It was about 6 weeks ago, I guess, and we hadn't seen each other in about 20 years. He's married to my sister, Jerry, and Jerry and I have connected several times, but Bud's always busy doing something. He's always out on the road or always on some job. So I finally got to see him after a lot of years. I think the last time we saw each other, you were just in high school or just out of high school?
It was, I think I was still in high school.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a very long time ago.
Right. So we kind of reconnected. And so I was asking him if he'd be on my show, and he agreed graciously to be on my show and kind of tell his story. And so I did say that you're an Army veteran. Can you tell us a little bit about your service, about how many years, what MOS you held, and maybe some of your assignments and just some things like that?
Well, I joined in 1990, and I wanted to be an airborne ranger, gung ho, but
Right.
at that time it was during the Gulf War, and all the airplanes were busy, so they said airborne school shut down. So the only thing that was available that I wanted to leave immediately, go to boot camp immediately. So the only thing that was available was combat engineer. So I was a combat engineer. There were other MOSs like, clerk and maybe cook or something like that, but I didn't want no part of that. So combat engineer sounded fun. I said I get to blow things up.
So what really did you, so I guess, what did you do stateside on your assignments versus deployed as a combat engineer?
Well, we trained a lot on demolitions and building bridges and putting in obstacles, taking out obstacles, that kind of thing. But after 9/11, all we did was route clearance, go out and look for bombs.
That had to have been pretty scary.
Yeah, well, I joined in 90. I got out of the Army in 97, and I went into the back in the Army Reserve right after 9/11.
Oh, okay.
And then in 2003, I deployed the first time. And I was in Ramadi. And mainly I did convoy escort, job site security, that kind of thing. And then after that, every other deployment, it was all route clearance.
How many deployments did you do?
I deployed to Iraq 3 times, one time for 18 months, one time for 15 months, and then one time for 12. And
Wow.
then I deployed to Afghanistan for 12 months.
So you said that you joined in 1990. So was that active duty military that you
Yeah,
joined
I was
in?
active duty until 97. Then, like I said, I got out of the off active duty, and then I went into the reserve after 9/11. And then during my second deployment, I figured if they're going to keep deploying me, I may as well get that pension. So they had this program where I could just elect to stay on active duty because we're on active duty orders while we're deployed.
Right.
And so I did that, and then stayed in for a total of 19 years. And then they medically retired me. So
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
do a full 20.
But pretty close. You were pretty close to the
Really
20.
close.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I
I
was
didn't know.
less than a year away from 20.
Yeah. I didn't know you were in the reserves. That's interesting because I joined in 1991. So you beat me
Okay.
by a year.
Yeah, let's see. I was during my deployments, I spent a year in Ramadi, or 18 months actually. And then after that, I was in Fallujah. Twice I was in Fallujah, and then I went to Afghanistan.
Red is one of our hosts. It says Jay Skelton, but he says, thank you for your service, bud.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Red's a retired, medically retired Air Force.
Oh, okay.
So what would you say was, I don't know is there a best deployment? I know we kind of talked before the show a little bit, and you were mentioning that you really didn't remember a lot about the deployments. And so from what you do remember, what would you say was the biggest takeaway or the most, I guess, the most interesting experience that you had?
Well, wow. I'll tell you the most vivid memory I have was during my second deployment, which was also the busiest one because we in Fallujah, my platoon found and cleared over 1,200 IEDs that deployment. And there was a route that we cleared from Fallujah and into Karma. And there's an outpost there, Marine Corps outpost called OP Omar. And we clear the route to OP Omar, and then we turn around and come back. And normally we try not to turn around at the same place each time. But on this route, there was really only one place to turn around. And so normally we would stop all the traffic, or we would pull out off the side, allow all the civilian traffic to clear out before we turn around.
Yeah.
And this one time, for no apparent reason, I decided we're going to stop the traffic and make them stay behind us when we turned around. And so when we stopped the traffic, there was a car there, and there was a little girl, maybe 6 years old. She was wearing a lavender dress, had little flowers on it, and she was standing up out of the back window of that car with her thumbs up, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so like I said, I had him stop there, and we turned around, and our lead vehicle went about 50 yards and hit an IED.
Oh, wow.
And, it blew the vehicle up pretty good, but the driver was okay. Our vehicles were designed to take it. But if it had hit that car, that little girl would have died.
Wow. Something told you just to do something a little differently that time. And then you made that difference for that little girl. That's so awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have this sixth sense, and it's God or it's whoever you think it is, but it's just telling us to do something just a little bit different this time, and there's usually a good reason why.
Yeah, that time it turned out there was.
Right.
But yeah, that is my most vivid memory of the whole deployments, all of them. So, but not all of the memories turned out that good.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure. There's good and there's bad with these types of things. So what made you join the military? What would you say was the reason, and how old were you when you joined?
I was 21 when I joined the Army,
21.
but pretty much my entire family served in the military. And I guess it's just what we do,
Right.
And I went back in after 9/11 because I was, I wanted to get revenge,
Yeah.
And I mean, that was it. Pretty much, I wanted revenge. So, but yeah, I don't know if I got revenge, but I think the most important thing I did the whole time I was in during these deployments was bring my men back alive.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I lost one soldier, but he was on R&R and drowned in Hawaii. He didn't die in combat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's sad. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it really was. He was he was a pretty special guy,
Yeah.
And you don't expect to lose somebody when they're home on R&R.
You sure don't. You sure don't.
There was my company lost several soldiers, but all the soldiers in my platoon came back alive every time.
Well, that's awesome. That's definitely something to be proud of, and something to take pride, take satisfaction in knowing that you were prepared to go and prepared to come back with everyone, in tow.
Yeah, I was a staff sergeant, and a platoon sergeant's generally a sergeant first class. But halfway through my first deployment, the platoon sergeant had a neck injury and he had to go home. And so I was next in line. I became the platoon sergeant, and then I was platoon sergeant through the next 3 deployments, even though I was in separate units, different units each time. But so I was a platoon sergeant as a staff sergeant. So and I used to get into some pretty major battles with the other platoon sergeants, and I'd have to remind them that, look, authority is based on position first. We're both in the same position,
Right.
So, but yeah, it's really weird because most of my third deployment, really nothing happened.
Yeah.
It was just quiet, because in Fallujah, during my second deployment, there's a route that went through Ramadi near Saddam's mosque. And we called it the Gauntlet because we just got tore up every time we went through there.
Yeah.
And then when I went back for my third deployment, we'd drive through there and there were women and children sitting there reading the Quran, on the grass, and people driving by in these, they're like 3-wheel taxis, like a motorcycle in the front with like a pickup bed in the back. They'd be waving at us. And I mean, it was quiet that whole year I was there.
So did it worry you that it was quiet? Did it like kind of give you an unnerving feeling since it was so different from what you'd experienced in the past?
No, it was what we did had succeeded, I mean, it was It was really weird. It was like night and day, you know. I mean, the second deployment, things blowing up all the time, always fighting our way down the road, and then the third deployment, it was just everything. It was turned around completely.
Wow. So you did. So in other words, we were making a difference, because if women and children and families are able to sit alongside the road and practice their religion, then we were doing something right.
Yeah. And then it seems like it all went to hell a year later, but at that time it was really quiet.
That's good.
So, but yeah, that the second deployment is when, it was like, well, I was at Camp Fallujah there in the second deployment, and we were under operational control of the Marine Corps. And so everywhere they went, we were in front of them clearing the route.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't move without us in front of them, because their vehicles weren't designed to take the hit. Ours were. And because we were in front of them, taking those hits for them all the time, they treated us really well. Yeah, I remember one time, Captain Lane was the guy that we reported to and gave us our missions. And I asked him, I told him, look, my men would like to have a barbecue. Is there any way you could, get us some steaks? And so we went out on patrol. When we come back, he had a chest freezer sitting by our tent with a generator running it. It was half full of steaks, and the other half was full of Hot Pockets. He had a charcoal grill sitting there, a pallet of charcoal, and a box of Cuban cigars for us.
Oh my goodness.
They treated us so well. And, so yeah, I tell you, there's a warm spot in my heart for the Marine Corps,
Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't a Marine, but man, they treated us well. Then not so much the next year. They didn't treat us all that well because, well, there was nothing going on. They didn't need us.
Yeah. That happens, right? Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to listen to Mr. Red, White, and Blue by Coffee Anderson, who's a Texas boy, and he's also a big supporter of the military. And then we'll be back with Bud, and you're on MBR, where we're giving veterans a voice.
It's the guts and it's the glory, 100 stripes, 100 stories. It's the Pledge of Allegiance on the 4th of July. It's them handwritten letters from home. It's them sleepless nights alone. It's his newborn baby he left with his wife. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's a line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Hey, from the fields of Indiana to the swamps of Louisiana, to the golden coast of California, Uncle Sam's the only family he's got. His purple heartbeat won't stop, and his 18th birthday was the day he was born. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's the light. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, stand on the front line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, pay the ultimate price. Oh. don't you lie. Hey. Hey.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Welcome back to Tracer Rounds, and I'm your host, Terry, and you're on Military Broadcast Radio, where we're giving veterans a voice. And tonight's voice is Bud White, and he happens to be my brother-in-law. I'm happy to have him on the show tonight, and we talk about his service. So I had a question for you. So what do you think of the new uniform, or the old new uniform coming back in the dress uniform, the pinks and the greens? What do you think about that?
I really haven't thought about it. I didn't know they were changing the uniform again.
Well, so they did, because back when we joined, because we joined around the same time, we had the green uniform. And then they transitioned to the blues.
Right.
And then they transitioned again last year. I think it was last year they started issuing officially the pinks and the greens, the World War II uniform, the one with the, they're kind of, well, it's like a tan colored shirt and then the like OD green colored suit jacket and pants. So it looked like Eisenhower type uniform.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't even seen them. I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah, well, the reason I brought it up is because the video, it shows that old World War II uniform marching past. And so it just made me think about it. And, for the length of time you served and the length of time I served, I've seen, 3 different dress uniforms. And then I think I've seen 3 different utility uniforms. How about you? How many uniforms have you been through? Besides like the desert and stuff like that, because those have come and gone too.
Yeah. Well, when I first joined, they had the greens, dress greens, and dress blues for
Very
NCOs.
formal. Right. Yeah.
The formal. And then it went from that to the blues, and they still had the blues when I got out. So
yeah,
they saw the 2.
They just introduced them not long ago. I didn't actually get issued because, well, the story is my unit was in Florida, and so they wouldn't ship anything to my house. They shipped it to Florida, and then I had to find a way to get all the gear home. So I had to buy extra luggage just to get all the gear. They issued me home. So I was like, I'm not taking an issue of those uniforms either, because I don't want to have to haul it home.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember when they went to the blues, all the drill sergeants and stuff were issued the uniforms, but we had to buy them because, we weren't TRADOC.
Oh, wow. So Pam, our mom is saying, well done, son-in-law.
Yeah.
And your spouse, my sister, is telling you a good job too.
Oh, well, thank you. And she's probably more pleased right now with me remodeling the bathrooms.
Yeah, you said so. We haven't transitioned yet to your what you do now, but I think probably is a good time to do so. So you are an owner operator of trucking for livestock, right?
Yeah.
So so tell me a little bit about that. How did you get started in that?
Well, I got started just driving somebody else's truck, and I was doing pretty well doing that. And then I decided it's time to put my own truck on the road, and it's been pretty rocky since I put my own on the road. Because a week after I put my truck on the road, I wrecked it. Then I bought another truck, and the guy that I bought it from had hidden issues in the engine, and so the engine blew up. So now it's been in the shop for a month. So I've only been an owner operator for since October, and most of that time my truck's been in the shop.
That's too bad. That's a little tough luck to get started, isn't it?
Yeah, and but once the truck should be out of the shop by Friday or early next week. And I think I'll do quite well after it comes out of the shop. But
Yeah.
but yeah, right now, I just have a lot of time on my hands.
So you're getting a lot of stuff done around the house is what you're doing.
Well, not as much as I'd like to, but I'm getting the important stuff done. The bathrooms.
Right. That is the important thing, that's for sure. So
Oh yeah.
how do you get started in a business? What's your suggestion if somebody else is wanting to get started in some kind of trucking or just in business in general? Do you have any tips or anything that you would suggest?
Well, getting started in trucking, I hauling livestock pays really well.
Yeah.
So to get started, just find somebody that needs a driver, drive their truck, save your money until you can buy your own truck. And the brokers that broker the loads, they have trailers. So you just need a truck, and then you rent their trailer from them, and they broker the loads and keep you moving. So it's in every other aspect of trucking. If you're an owner operator and you either lease your truck to a company, they pay you a mileage rate to drive that truck, or you go completely independent, and then you're working with multiple brokers. They want to make you wait up to 45 days before they pay you.
Oh,
And I've tried that route, and yeah, I had times where I couldn't afford fuel, and people owed me $20,000. So
Oh, good grief. That's terrible.
yeah, yeah. So, or you have to, if you want them to pay you early, you have to pay them 10% of what they owe you to get it early. So it's kind of a ripoff.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, hauling livestock, these brokers, they pay you either every week or every 2 weeks. Most of them have fuel cards that you can use, so they take the fuel right out of your settlement checks. It simplifies everything a lot. So, if somebody wants to haul cattle, and like I said, just find somebody that has a truck that needs a driver, drive for them. And once you have some experience, just go buy a truck and go to work.
Is there a lot of special things you have to do to haul livestock? I mean, because you'd have to go across state lines, so you've got to have some certificates on health, and then you've got to is there so many hours a day that they can be trucked? Is there like
Yeah.
certain requirements when you're hauling livestock versus when you're just hauling merchandise?
Well, cattle surprisingly can be on the trailer for up to 27 hours
Wow.
but if you're going to go over that 27 hours, you have to stop, unload them, feed them, water them, and let them rest for at least 5 hours before you can put them back on the truck. And other than that, cattle are so easy because they can take a lot of heat, they can take the cold. They're a very sturdy animal. Hauling hogs or something like that, I just won't do it because, man, you got to stop every couple hours, hose them down, keep them from overheating, and it's hard to keep them alive on the trailer.
Yeah.
So I just won't even haul hogs. Pays well, but it's just not worth it to me.
Right. It sounds like it takes a lot more effort, a lot more care, and maintenance of your cargo.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So how far do you haul livestock, because I know you're based out of Idaho. So
Yeah,
how
well,
far do you end up hauling cattle?
I've gone as far east, clear to the East Coast.
Oh, wow.
And but normally Nebraska is about the furthest I go regularly. And I've hauled from Northern California to Eastern Nebraska, and in one load. So, but generally 800-900 mile runs. That's about the most that I regularly do. Sometimes I'll go 1,200 miles.
Yeah, that's a haul. That's hard. So do you like to haul cattle, or would you? I mean, so what's your preference? Is hauling livestock what you'd prefer to do, or would you prefer to have loads that didn't require the maintenance part of it?
I used to think, when I was pulling a flatbed, and
Yeah.
I always like, man, I don't want to haul anything that could die before I deliver it,
Right.
But I really enjoy hauling cattle. It's got its ups and downs. Like I've been carried out of the trailer by a bull a couple of times and beat up a little bit by him.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Oh man, I had one that was he wouldn't come out of the trailer.
Mhm.
So I went into the back of the trailer, tried to coax him, out of there, and as soon as I did, he charged.
Oh no.
And I turned to run, and I wasn't fast enough. He ended up head down and hit me in the back of the legs, picked me up. I was on my back, and after he got me out of the trailer, he threw me out of the chute and then jumped over top of me. It was gone. We chased him around Caldwell for about 3 hours.
Oh my goodness. Did you catch him?
Oh yeah, he was at Pizza Hut.
He was at Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. That was, yeah. So here I'm walking around Caldwell. Have you seen a bull go by here?
Oh jeez. Did you get wranglers to come get
He
him?
went that way.
Did you get wranglers to come get him, or how did you get him back in the trailer?
Well, we had it was at a sale barn livestock auction that I was delivering him to,
Mhm.
and they had cowboys that come out there with horses and got him lassoed and forced back into a trailer.
That's
But
good.
yeah, this bull was oh man, he was the most aggressive bull I'd ever seen dealt with.
You didn't know you were wearing red, did you?
Yeah, no, I was probably wearing a black t-shirt just like I am now.
Wow. Yeah, that would be
I had
scary.
he left me bloodied up a little bit, so there's some red then, but
Oh my God.
nothing major. He didn't break any bones.
That's a good thing. You were lucky, I think. Well, we're going to take another
Yeah.
quick break, and we're going to play Dallas Alexander, Adios Amigo, and he's the Special Forces Canadian soldier that's turned country singer, and he's actually moving to Tennessee sometime, I think, next month. And so we're going to play his song, and then we'll be right back with Bud White.
Staring out, there's a hotel window, many floors above. What's missing down there is love. Thinking through the smoke that fills my mind. Don't worry, it's not my first time. Adios, amigo. I'm so glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. I've been looking for you since I stepped foot in this town. They say it's all inside, heaven and hell. What happened to that angel when he fell? Give it just one try. Tell me you don't like it. Be God for a moment and don't despise it. Adios, amigo. I'm so glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. Step outside and breathe. Play a little in the street. Hope it's not me they're sending. Move one from over there. Get the kids a little scared. Oh, these fences, they need mending. Adios, amigo. So glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. I've been looking for you since I stepped foot in this town. Adios, amigo. So glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. I've been looking for you since I stepped foot in this town.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Welcome back to the Tracer Rounds podcast, and I'm your host, Terry, and with me in studio tonight is Bud White, and he is my brother-in-law, and we were talking about his service, and we were talking about his trucking company, Patriot Livestock, and so I wanted to ask you, though, was your transition from the military hard? Did you find it hard to put down the boots and then pick up something else, or was that an easy transition for you, or how would you say that went for you?
I would say I was ready to go.
Yeah.
You know, the Army had changed so much, and I had, you know, what with nearly 5 years deployed, I was ready to go. So it really was not a difficult transition.
For some, it's like it's a loss of a sense of community. Did you feel a loss of a sense of community, or were you like, man, I'm ready for that. I can turn the switch down and I'm good. I can walk away. I did what I needed to do, and now I'm on to something else.
Well, you know, when you were in you were active duty, weren't you?
No, always reserves.
Okay. Well, anytime you go outside, you know, you had to have a hat. You had to have your cover on, right?
Yes.
And so I compare the feeling that I had for a lot of the time after I got out. It was like that feeling when I'd walk outside and I'd forgot my hat, and I'm like, oh my God, I hope nobody sees me. You know, it was like I'm doing something wrong. Like what I'm doing right now is just wrong, and I couldn't really put a finger on why it was wrong. It was just that feeling, you know.
Yeah, it was so ingrained. Like, so to this day, I can't walk across the grass. I have to walk on the sidewalk because all I hear in my head is, get off my grass! Stop walking on my grass!
Yeah.
Sergeant Major comes out
song,
and tells you
that
what
song
for.
that you played during the break, and for some reason it reminded me of when I was in Afghanistan. We were in the Urzgan province on a base called Tarakout. It was Australian based, and there was an Australian soldier. His name was Ra, actually. But when I met him, we had a fire pit out there when we're not on patrol. We'd a lot of times sit around a fire and tell stories and shit.
Yeah.
I mean, and stuff. And he was sitting around the fire playing the guitar and singing a song called Dust of Urzgan. And just, I don't know, if listen to that song, it just reminded me of him, you know?
Huh. See, we were talking about before the show, like that you didn't have like a lot of like long memories of your deployments. They were just like flashes or blips in time. And then when you see, and we were talking about when you see something or hear something or smell something that reminds you, then you're like, oh, it brought back this memory that you've kind of forgotten about because, you saw something visual or something, that affected either your sight, senses, or of some kind, and just brought that back to you, right?
Yeah, and it's I do have some not so pleasant memories, but most of the things that I think about constantly are the good things. The things that you know weren't so scary, I guess.
Right.
And actually, while I was deployed, and all hell was breaking loose, you didn't have time to be scared. It's when it was quiet and nothing was happening, and that you have time to think about what could happen, that
Right.
really were the scariest moments.
Yeah, when you're busy, it's easier to like just keep moving and not stop and think and not, like concentrate or you don't have time for worry basically because you're just busy doing things. Your mind's occupied. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
down times that get to you, I'm sure.
Well, we had this was one back when I was in Fallujah, going back to the second deployment. We had one mission where we were near Karma, near Omar again, and it started out really funny, because the explosive they used for these IEDs was oftentimes was HME or homemade explosives.
Mhm.
And well, they got the mix kind of wrong. So every time a vehicle would move, you'd see this little puff in the dust, And we got there goes another one. There goes another. There had to have been like 20 of them that went off, and after the first 4 or 5, you're kind of chuckling, boy, these guys screwed that one up,
Yeah. Luckily
Yeah.
they did.
Well, yeah, it got worse,
Uh-oh.
we had by the end of the night, the only vehicle that was able to move under its own power was mine. And
Oh,
it had half the windows were broken and all the lights blown out of it. And so we had to wait for about 3 hours for the sun to come up to clear the last 500 meters to get recovery vehicles in there to us. Well, no, that EOD vehicle was still unscathed, but they had to stay behind us. And so we had to wait for the sun to come up because we had no lights.
oh,
And like I said, there's 500 meters to go. We could see OP Omar out there in the distance, and with a whole line of recovery vehicles waiting for us to clear that last 500 meters. So we had no, interrogation assets. Like we had a Buffalo had a big arm on it, with a claw to interrogate IEDs, dig them up. We had ground penetrating radar, that kind of stuff. But that was all disabled. The only thing that was able to move was 2 armored vehicles with no assets on it. But the EOD had a robot. So if we spotted something, then they could put an explosive charge on the robot, run it back, and blow it up in place. So about 100 yards from the end of this route, the paved road, back to the paved road,
mhm.
I spotted just a clump of grass that was picked and dropped right there in the middle of the road. So I said, "No, that's an IED," So
Yeah.
I called EOD on the radio and I says, "Look, we're going to bypass it. Stay in my tire tracks. Do not leave my tire tracks until we get past it. Then you can take your robot, place a charge on there, blow it up." Well, they didn't stay in my tire tracks.
Oh no.
So the whole front of their vehicle got blown off of their truck, and the bumper and grill is like one unit thick steel, bounced off the back of my vehicle.
Oh
I
my
couldn't
goodness.
hear it for the next 24 hours, but just constant ringing.
Wow.
But after that, the recovery assets were able to get in there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, nobody was hurt.
That's good.
I mean, we had 8 armored vehicles in that patrol, and every one of them, by the time it was out, it was over. Mine was still the only one able to move under its own power, but it had no lights. Half the windows were blown out. And well, not blown out. There's 4 inches thick armored glass, but they just laminated. When they get blown up, they just puff up.
Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, that was a really long night. I remembered that. I didn't remember that one until just a little while ago. But
That is a long night. That would be really scary to just be sitting there waiting for light to come. You never know what's around the corner waiting or not. And then you don't know, you're still clearing your path, so you don't know what else is out there either.
well, what amazed me is what can become normal.
Right.
Yeah, we got some replacements in for people that either, we had people that were injured that couldn't go back out on patrol, or like I said, none of the people in my platoon died, but we had people that were injured, wounded, couldn't go out. So we got some replacements, and I remember we were getting ready to go out on patrol, and they showed up. There was 3 of them. And so somebody comes up and say, "Hey, Sergeant, what do you want to do with these new guys?" I says, "Throw them in the back." No time like the present to get their feet wet,
Right.
So we're going out on this route. It's called Route School. And our lead vehicle, it was called a Husky, and it was designed so it was in modules, like the front section and the rear section would blow completely off to absorb the blast. And it had a real sharp V-shaped hull. So, it could take a huge blast and driver be fine, And so we probably 3 hours into the patrol, the lead Husky hit an IED. And that was pretty funny. Because, like I said, you'd be amazed what can become normal. But
Right.
the driver of it, the door to get in is on top, right? So it blew both the front and rear module off. So it dropped down onto that V-shaped hull and then tipped over, and it ejected him out the top. And the one thing we drill into him is never leave the vehicle when it gets blown up, because there's generally a secondary device, because they'll wait until you come out to recover that vehicle or the personnel, and then blow the second one up to get the people on the ground.
Oh my God.
So he was thrown out to the top, and he was using these radios that we borrowed from the Marine Corps that actually hooked onto his gear, and he could talk to the vehicle radios through it.
Mhm.
And he hadn't even hit the ground, and he's yelling, "I'm okay," or I'm okay, and scrambling back into the vehicle, right?
Right.
And it was just watching it happen was funny at the time. And these 2 new guys that were in my vehicle, they're losing their minds. My driver is telling me about the town that he wants to move to when he gets out of the Army.
Mhm.
The gunner was telling me about how when he went home for R&R, his pastor had made a big deal out of him being a hero when he had asked him not to. And these 2 in the back are just losing their minds. And we're telling them, "Look, calm down, relax. We got it under control. He's fine. Just relax."
Right.
But, and they're like, "You guys are crazy. What's the matter with you?" We're just calm. It's like another day at the office.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting what becomes normal, like you said, because if that's the day in the life of, then that's normal. You just keep going, you just do what you got to do and carry on the mission. But yeah, to somebody just stepping into those boots and into that role, I mean, I can imagine they were just like, what in the world did we just get into?
Oh yeah, because we blew up 3 of our vehicles on that patrol.
Oh my
And
goodness.
the Husky got blown up. And then the next one was a RG-31, which was an armored vehicle that a troop carrier.
Yeah.
And the whole front section of those is riveted on, so that if it gets a big enough blast, it'll blow the whole front of the vehicle off.
Oh,
But the driver's compartment won't be penetrated, And so, I mean, this is a big blast. You can see the whole vehicle raise up, almost straight up, and then drop back down, and there's nothing but smoke and dust. And anytime there's a blast like that, the radios go down for a short amount of time. And I don't know if it's because of the blast or what, but there was probably about 2 or 3 minutes that we couldn't get a hold of the crew in that vehicle, and we're waiting, till we see something. And when the smoke clears, that vehicle, the whole front from the windshield forward, is blown completely away. And the driver, he was, he's dipping Copenhagen, and he's got a spit bottle stuck in a bungee cord in the windshield. And as soon as the smoke clears, you see him reach forward, grab his spit bottle, spit in it, and put it back in like it's nothing.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. But yeah, it's, like I said, it just you'd be amazed at what can become normal,
Yeah, I guess so. That's something. Like, that's scary stuff. And you made it through all of that unscathed for the most part. I mean, I'm sure you had your moments when things happen, but you live to tell the tale, and you live to tell the story. So what would you tell somebody wanting to join the military? What would you say would make them successful in the military if they were joining today?
Being a team player, there's so many people when I was in the Army were worried about their career. What's going to help me? What's going to get me ahead? But if you're worried about your men, if your men succeed, you succeed, and a lot of people lose sight of that. So to me, the thing that I think, it's hard to define success, because I never made it past staff sergeant because I was too busy taking care of my men and stuff to sit down at night and do those computer courses to get that, degree that I needed to get promoted, but I had a soldier, this was my second deployment. When I was assigned to the unit, he and I were both staff sergeants, but I outranked him by time and grade.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took over the platoon that he thought should have been his.
Mm-hmm.
And so he fought me horribly and tried to undermine me constantly, and I had people telling him, you need to look out for this guy because he's out, he's trying to ruin you. And I said, look, he wants my job. If he didn't want my job, I wouldn't want him. Don't worry about him. He'll be fine. He's probably my number one asset. I was able to see past the fact that he was bitter and trying to take my job and see what he was capable of. And it took me a little while, but he did become my number one asset. I mean, I saw him years later when I was training soldiers. He was at Fort Bliss, and I went down there to train some soldiers, and he was being promoted to E7.
Nice. And
I told him, I said, you know what? If you remember, I told you one day you would outrank me, but right now I outrank you, And he told me that he thanked me. He said he wouldn't be where he is today if it hadn't been for me, that I taught him everything he needed to know to get there. And to me, that's success, watching him and having him realize that I taught him something, and humble him enough to actually admit it,
That's the way I would define success too. It's really about seeing the others that maybe you're in charge of succeed, and to get somewhere, because like you said, it's teamwork and it's selfless service. So if that's your goal, if that's your whole end state, you're going to be successful, I think.
Yeah, I was a little bit older than most people when I joined the Army, and then I got out for several years, 7 or 8 years, and then went back in. So I was quite a few years older than all of my soldiers, and it really struck me. One day, there was one of my soldiers. He had messed up bad. I can't remember what he did, but it was pretty bad. And I lit into him. I mean, I was just tearing him apart, and he cried. And it occurred to me that he wasn't crying because I was yelling at him. He was crying because he had disappointed me,
Yeah.
And that's when it really occurred to me that a lot of these young soldiers don't have a dad at home, and they were looking to me as like a father figure, and that really hit me, and it changed how I looked at my soldiers from then on, and it was. It was an experience, I think, one thing that struck me about all of my deployments, being the platoon sergeant, I was the one in charge. I couldn't show any weakness,
Right.
Because if I did, then it would cause my soldiers to, worry them, if I'm constantly showing strength, then that inspires them to, that we're going to be okay,
I agree.
And so I didn't ever have that time where I could just, let it go. It's like I always had to show strength. I always had to be positive,
Right.
Yeah.
And steady.
So
Positive and steady.
yeah, so I mean, at the end of the deployments, I was always so tired.
I
you
bet.
know?
Yeah.
But,
Well, we have about 2 minutes left, and it's been such great talking with you, Bud, and I really appreciate you sharing your story. And so, do you have anything you want to say, just as a parting few words before we get off the broadcast?
I really can't think of anything.
Well,
No,
if you
I
need
can't think of any
cattle hauled, Bud's your guy, Patriot Livestock. So he's in Idaho. So just look him up. Do you have a Facebook page? Do you have an internet site?
No, I pretty much avoid Facebook most of the time, but no, I don't have any. It's just, but one thing that struck me just the other day, I don't have a lot of I have a lot of acquaintances, people that are friends when I'm there, when I run into them, but I only have 2 real friends that I stay in touch with constantly. One, I spent a year with in Iraq, and the other one, I have never met him in person. He grew up with the guy that I spent a year with in Afghanistan. And I've been talking to him on the phone for probably 8 years, and those are my 2 only real friends,
Right.
And
Well,
I realized that
do
it's
have to.
because the whole time I was in the Army, I was in charge. I was in a leadership position from the time within a year and a half after I joined the Army.
Well, we have to
And
go.
so I had to distance myself.
We're going to have to get off the air, but thank you, Bud, for joining us. And thank you for being my guest tonight. And you're on MBR, where we're giving veterans a voice. Tracer Rounds out.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, Thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.